Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I thought I'd start this video off with a little bit of comedy, so I hope you all enjoy that. I'm sure that gentleman that popped up from his seat didn't enjoy it very much, according to his reaction. I have a jam-packed video today, ladies and gentlemen, so grab your coffee and let's get started. Jamaica devastated by menacing Hurricane Melissa. Widespread power outages, internet blackouts, and severe infrastructure damage. I'm not here to talk about the hurricane per se. I just want to go ahead and request that you send a prayer to Jamaica, some good thoughts, some good vibes. I'm not sure what they're doing about recovering from this, being that they're pretty much still in the middle of it. But I was looking at this radar, and it is a huge hurricane. It's being said that the winds are sustained at about 175 miles an hour with gusts that go more than 200 miles an hour. So a prayer for Jamaica. I just really hope that there's not many casualties, hopefully zero, but you know how these things are, ladies and gentlemen, and that their recovery efforts enable the people to go back to a normal sense of living here in the future. I'm sure that you've been following this like a hawk, like many other people have been, and the writing is on the wall, ladies and gentlemen. It seems that there is not going to be a negotiation reached to open the government before this Friday, meaning what we've all been hearing, that a lot of people, upwards of 40 plus million people within the United States, are going to be losing access to government-funded food. Nearly all Democrats have rejected the measure until Republicans come to terms on their proposal to extend health care funding expiring end of this year. Now, the way I read this is that the politicians, both sides, have their own agenda, and one side's agenda is to ensure that people that are here unlawfully continue to get medical benefits at the cost of those of us that have to pay for those benefits. That's the real issue at hand, ladies and gentlemen. And for those of you that disagree, that's okay that we disagree. But ask yourselves, if your child was sick, would you put the medical needs of someone that you don't even know above those of your own child? That should be a very easy question to answer. We are broke. Even with this government shutdown, we still have a deficit. And it would probably take a full year, if not longer, to erase that deficit if we keep the government shut down. So all of these entitlements that are going out are entitlements that are being paid by borrowed money. What does that mean to you? That they're being paid by borrowed money, that the government is borrowing money. It's not the government that's borrowing money. It's you and I, in addition to our children, that will be responsible for as long as this system is in place in paying back the interest of that borrowed money. So the more that we borrow, the more that we enslave ourselves into having to give of our labor and our freedoms so that the government can then in turn take that money that they take from us and give it to the banks in the form of interest. A lot of people that are losing their jobs or have been furloughed, a lot of people that are losing their entitlements to SNAP, they are at the end of the road because they have not prepared. Not saying anything derogatory towards them, that's just a fact. But imagine if the majority of Americans would just prepare for 1 or 2 months, just have a couple of months worth of food, if that. Maybe even a little cheap water filter so that you can make sure that your water is clean. Just have that put away as a contingency in case this happens again, and or if any other crisis evolves where you need to rely on that food. It would make us as a people, we the people, that much stronger. And we would have a lot more choices than to have to stand in line for hours just to receive a couple of days worth of food. Food lines are already growing longer all over America. I can only imagine how the food banks are faring during this time. Well, let's see. On a recent Thursday evening, the line of cars waiting to pick up food in Midtown snaked through the parking lot, down a driveway, and into the street. Julie McCaw called the situation alarming. Families with working parents, senior citizens, and people who simply cannot find work increasingly are turning to food pantries like hers for help. And she says, I walk past the lines of people who wait for our free meal program. Those lines typically extend a city block. They are about to get longer. And even without this government shutdown going on, the lines were going to get longer anyways. It is estimated, ladies and gentlemen, that by the year 2028 or 2030, that about 92 million people are going to lose their jobs to AI. So what would I say to that? Learn how to become a plumber. Learn how to become an electrician. Learn how to build houses. Work on cars, tractors, change tires, things that robots are not going to be able to do in the near future. That way you can have a living to fall back on when AI takes over. Because AI, ladies and gentlemen, it's already taking over. And I'm assuming that because of AI, a lot of people that have been furloughed via the government are probably not going to be invited back. But that's just me speculating, I guess you can say. Federal workers lined up around the corner outside of the Capital Area Food Bank in southeast Washington, D.C. on Friday after missing their first full paycheck since the now 24-day government shutdown. Yes, it is great that the food banks are there, but they can only do so much. So what's going to happen when they can no longer service the amount of people that they are used to servicing? And like I stated on yesterday's video, it seems that it's almost every day that I come across one of these articles. Water woes for Wisconsin homeowner expose a growing public health crisis. Every day you find something in the news that's talking about how water in this location or that location is contaminated with this or that. And I'm not doing this to pat myself on the back. I'm doing this because I care that you have clean water. Without clean water, does it really matter? Does it really matter? You can run marathons, right? You can go to the gym 5-6 hours a day. But if you're drinking water that's poisoning you, does it really matter? Homebuyer Tyler Fry discovered his new private well in Casco, Wisconsin, tested at 26.6 milligrams per liter of nitrate, over twice the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's safe drinking water limit of 10 milligrams per liter. So, does it really make sense that any nitrates in the water should be acceptable? It should be zero, right? Well, all of these utilities and government pundits, they know exactly what you should do, but they won't recommend that. Why? Because it would cost money. They say that over 90% of groundwater nitrate in Wisconsin stems from fertilizer and manure applications. Mitigation costs are substantial for homeowners and municipalities alike, and I would say that I disagree with that. Mitigation costs are not substantial for homeowners. It's just a mere fact that you can purchase an inexpensive reverse osmosis water filtration system or even a whole house filtration system that will reduce these chemicals that are poison, ladies and gentlemen. Fry installed a reverse osmosis filtration system, and public utilities have spent tens of millions on nitrate removal. Now take a look at this quick clip that I found on YouTube.
Here are the 3 biggest ways to reduce your exposure to microplastics. Okay, so number 1, first most important way to minimize your exposure to microplastics, do not drink out of plastic water bottles. What do I do instead of bottled water? I have a reverse osmosis filter in my house. It just sits on my countertop. This will remove all the microplastics, and then I remineralize this reverse osmosis water with a microplastic-free sea salt. Number 2, you guys have probably seen me do this before. When you cut like this on a plastic cutting board, small pieces of plastic from the cutting board are going to end end up in your food. Those small pieces of plastic, those microplastics, you are eating them when you are using a plastic cutting board. All right, number 3, and you may not be aware of this, you should rinse your dishes and dry them before you use them. Yes, it's extra work, but there's a significant amount of microplastics that accumulate just from being indoors. Polyester furniture, polyester clothing, all these things put microplastic dust into the air of your home, and that dust ends up on your dishes.
The information is out there, ladies and gentlemen. Are we willing to accept it and take action on that information? I feel that clean water is so vital and it's so important that it's why I talk about it all the time. And especially my last several videos, I've talked about it a lot because, again, SIMPURE is doing a giveaway and it's going to be after November 5th. However, between now and then, go check out the entry video that I have for SIMPURE and you'll be able to enter. The instructions are on the video and it is super simple to enter to win a reverse osmosis filtration system of your own. So if you can't afford one, go at least enter to win one. And the other thing I like to talk about is the Oupes giveaway. Oupes is giving away an awesome solar generator that hasn't even launched yet. I believe it launches here sometime in November. I'm not sure if it's towards the beginning or the end, but you can check that out on your own. I forget things very easily, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing is this, is that you can enter to win one at no cost to you. All you have to do is come to this page. I'll leave the link to this page on a pinned comment. Come to this page, go ahead and enter your email and subscribe. And they'll let you know when they're having a flash sale because they're having a Halloween sale here. I believe it starts today, actually, the 29th. They're having a Halloween sale and then they're also having a flash sale where they give you the absolute best prices on everything. But you don't have to buy anything to win. And if you enter, what you'll do is you will help those people that actually want to purchase a system, purchase it for a lesser cost. And look at this. 2,552 people have already subscribed, all right, to get a notification for when the flash sale occurs and when the system comes out, the Guardian 6000. And I bet you that most of this 2,500 are from the AP community. So come on over here, subscribe. You might get lucky and win one. And I hope that it's one of our people, one of the AP community people that wins, because it'd be really awesome. If you do win, make sure you send me an email and tell me, hey, I'm the one that won. So the best of luck to every one of you. And Oupes, by the way, I believe is a very good company with a very good product at a working man's price and not the extravagant amount of money that a lot of these other solar generator companies charge for their units. But anyways, I digress. Let me get off my soapbox and let's get back to the news. AP, why are you talking about this? You don't live in Chicago. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the problem is that if something happens somewhere, then more than likely other states want to mimic it. And even though we have things and policies that have been put in place by other states that completely fail, it seems like a good idea because of the ideology behind it. This economy is one of the toughest job markets for entry-level positions. So young workers are going to pay the price for Chicago mayor's employee tax. He's coming up with an employee tax where he's pretty much going to charge the company for allowing them to employ someone. And now Chicago's mayor is advancing new tax hikes in his budget that will make it even more difficult for Gen Z workers to build lives and careers in the city. As he unveiled his budget last week, he took to a familiar tactic to fill a $1.15 billion budget shortfall, new taxes and higher fees. Of course, that's all that government knows how to do. Name me one thing that government can do well that benefits the people. Man, maybe there's one or two depending on who's in office, but most things government should stay out of because we American citizens, we're adults, right? We can actually think for ourselves. Well, most of us at least. The target of his work tax hikes this time is the business community. And if history is any indicator, results are poised to be disastrous. Johnson announced he'd derived the city's long-defunct business head tax, charging businesses with over 100 employees, such as McDonald's, United, and other large firms, $21 per employee per month. Is he really charging the businesses that? No, he's not, ladies and gentlemen. He's charging you that. So you Chicagoans, that is a tax that is being charged on you, and you will pay it. You will realize the consequences of this bill, should it go forward, that it is you that will pay that tax in the form of lost jobs, lost opportunities, because other businesses are not going to want to come to Chicago if they have to face even another tax put on them. And also, do you think that the businesses are going to pay this tax and not pass it down to the consumer? So be careful what you ask for. Remember that $15 an hour protest that they were having all over Washington State and California, etc., several years ago? I remember ranting about it, saying $15 an hour is not going to fix the problem. The problem is inflation. The problem is that the money supply keeps getting larger, but we are not really producing that much more to keep up with that money supply increasing in the economy. And now they're talking about, well, we need at least $20 an hour. And I think, oh, we need $25 an hour for healthcare workers, etc. The amount of income doesn't matter as long as the amount of borrowing and money creation doesn't matter either. A lot of people are wondering if gold's rally and silver's rally are over. In my opinion, it's just beginning. The 10% or 15% loss, whatever it is that it's had over the last couple of weeks, in my opinion, is very, very bullish. Is very bullish. It may seem bearish to some that bought when silver was $54. It may seem bearish, but it's not. In my opinion, it's bullish. Gold is an overcrowded trade that's overextended by every technical metric, says this analyst from a research firm. And she also wrote in early October that it's getting even more overbought. Right? So even though gold is dropping, they are still, people and banks are still buying the heck out of it, creating a physical shortfall. Gold is the best investment, she said. We decided to gather all our money and come today because we knew prices had dropped. What I disagree with, what she said in that first line is that gold, in my opinion, or silver are not investments. Sure, you can speculate with it when you're using the paper gold, ETFs and such, but I don't count whatever precious metals I have in nominal terms. I count them in ounces because it's the ounces that's going to save you. It's not the price that they're being sold at that period of time. I was texting back and forth with a really long time community member of the AP channel and a friend. I consider him a friend. He's a really good man. And he says, hey, you know what? A quarter from 1964 today could buy you a can of Spam. And in 1964 or before that, a quarter would buy you a can of Spam. And I said, well, yes, before 1964, you can buy a can of Spam with a silver quarter. It was about that price, I believe. He sent me a picture. And I said, however, today a can of Spam is roughly $4, depending on where you buy it. Maybe $3.50 or $4 roughly, right? So I said, and a 1964 or prior quarter today is going for about between $8 and $9. So technically, you can buy 2 cans of Spam today for what you could buy 1 can of Spam before 1964 with that same quarter. And the reason for that is because silver and gold have both been so manipulated by these paper contracts that a lot of their wealth has been trapped. So it hasn't even been able to keep up with real inflation. Therefore, when it's finally released, and one day it will release because it's nature, ladies and gentlemen, Fibonacci. Once it's released, it's going to gain all of that lost purchasing power that had been taken from them over the last, I would say, 100 years, if not more. So if you have gold and silver, I am not a financial advisor, but I would not consider trading it in for fiat when you know that fiat currency only does one thing, and it's go down in value. Now, I would say that if you were cashing in some gold and silver in order to take that fiat currency and put it into some real investment, like maybe a rental property, etc., that maybe that would make sense. However, I'm never cashing it in unless I really need to cash it in. How do you know when you need to cash it in? You'll know. I heard what I thought was a rumor, but this is actually really good news, because it seems that when one of the world's superpowers, and I consider obviously the US as a superpower, China is a superpower, Russia is a superpower, I also consider India a superpower. So whenever one of the world's superpower does something that's against the grain, but something that's right, that's the right thing to do, if it works out for them, and I think it will, because real money is a lot stronger than fiat currency, then usually other superpowers and other countries will follow. India backs money with gold and silver. Wait till you hear this. India's recent move to recognize silver as banking collateral marks a significant shift in the country's approach to monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India has updated guidelines to include silver ornaments as eligible collateral for small loans. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. Setting a 10-to-1 gold to silver ratio. This policy, set to take effect in April of next year, allows borrowers to pledge up to 10 kilograms of silver or 1 kilogram of gold as collateral for loans. Now, what's going to happen next April? I believe that we'll be on another huge leg up for gold and silver if this stays true. The move aims to expand the use of silver as a form of collateral, particularly among Indian households and small businesses, and could bolster domestic silver demand. The new guidelines also introduce uniform valuation and documentation standards to ensure transparency and protect borrowers. Now, do I believe that what India is doing is the right thing? I believe it is the right thing for their people. But what are they really doing? They're diversifying away from the dollar. They're doing it in a way that the average person that reads this doesn't really understand that that's what they're doing. France proposes national Bitcoin reserve, wants to buy 2% of the Bitcoin supply. Again, what is France doing? All of a sudden, all of these countries and governments are for Bitcoin when 10 years ago they were like, Bitcoin's the devil. France doesn't care about Bitcoin. France cares about diversifying away from the dollar because they see that the dollar is almost done. Its days are almost over, ladies and gentlemen. They can continue to call it the dollar all they want, but in all actuality, the dollar's definition changes every single day. But I'll share with you the last 3 or 4 times that the dollar's definition changed, where it affected the lives of every single American and a lot of people around the world. The first time that the definition of the dollar changed, or the Federal Reserve note, let's say, changed, was back in 1933, where Roosevelt went ahead and took everyone's gold, or everyone that would give it. He took their gold, exchanged every ounce of gold for $22.67 in fiat currency, and then after he got all of the gold that he can possibly get from the population of the citizens of the United States, he went ahead and revalued the gold upward to $35, effectively implementing a 60 or so percent tax on the people via inflation, via the addition of 60 or so percent of more money into the economy than there was before he took their gold. So the dollar was revalued during that time. It's just that they don't teach you this in high school or college. When's another time that the dollar was revalued? In 1971, August 15th, when Richard Nixon decoupled the Federal Reserve note from the last vestiges of gold that it was gaining its value from, effectively giving the power, full power of our currency, of the people of the United States, to the Federal Reserve and the banks that own it. Well, when's the third time, AP, that the dollar changed? I believe that it was in 2008, when they started the practice of quantitative easing, pretty much money printing right out in the open, telling people, hey, we're just printing money and we're putting it into the economy, and that is going to change the value of your dollar. And it did. They just didn't tell us that. Since 2008 to today, what's happened to the cost of living? What's happened to the inflation and the price of things? So what India is doing here, I believe, is very important, not only for them, but for the world. And we're going to finish it off with this: the Fed's pivot, the return of easy money, quantitative easing, and the inflation storm ahead. If you've been watching me for a while, I've talked about inflation for a long time. And one thing that is 100% certain about inflation is that it can only continue to go up. Heck, it's built into their plan. Inflation will only continue to go up. Therefore, the price of things will only continue to go up as well. Jerome Powell, the Fed's chairman, recently gave the clearest signal yet that the Federal Reserve's so-called quantitative tightening, where quantitative tightening is the opposite of easing, is about to end. Meaning what? That as soon as they start doing quantitative easing, we, the people, are going to feel the effects of that within 6 months to 18 months, because that's about how long it takes for new money that's put into the economy to realize itself into the price of things that you have to pay for. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this video. I hope you got something out of it. Make sure that you go check out my last video. I actually put one out early this morning, so this is my second video of the day. I want to thank you very much for all of your support. I truly do appreciate every one of you. Make sure that you go ahead and click on the links below so that you can watch that entry video and enter to win an RO system. And also go ahead and subscribe at the Oupes page so that you can be entered to win a Guardian 6000. God bless every one of you. I love you all. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.